Happy Friday, folks. We are back for another YaZo strategy talk with a little bit of dance pop in the background. Hope everybody's had a blessed week so far. Excited to get back into this topic. I know we're going to focus on this throughout the month of August, but today is going to be all about community-driven marketing for SMBs. So this is really where we're going to unpack some of those marketing actionable insights specifically for you SMB leaders that are out there, or if you're working with a growth focused team. So brands are battling algorithm changes. We all know that things are ever evolving in the social space. We're getting ad fatigue and we're shrinking attention spans with all the distractions of today's world. But there's one truth that stands out: people trust people. So whether it's employees, customers, partners, real voices move the needle today in marketing. We're going to dive into how you can build a loyal tribe around your brand, leverage advocacy inside and out, and use community as a strategic growth engine. So let's dive into it. Ma, why don't you kick us off with just some quick initial thoughts?
Yeah, I think let's talk about like what community even means, because I think that's the important point to start boiling down that definition of community. And in the YaZo world, community can mean customers, it can mean clients, it can mean supporters, it can mean partners, it can mean just advocates for your business. Depending on if you're nonprofit or profit, it can mean different things. And it can certainly mean employees. In fact, that is a key part of what we're talking about in August in our on our social pages, is how to get your employees to consistently be internal advocates for your brand, for your company, organization, whatever it might be. And I think the important thing with that is that when you look at Eli hit on this so well, is like, it's really changing the ad world, right? The digital space is changing. It's every day. And one thing that remains true and loyal are our employees, we hope, and our partners and our advocates. And so Eli is going to unpack, some stats and things that are pretty powerful that show how organic engagement from our community is incredibly helpful in building our social spaces. And in fact, probably more helpful than even the content. You know, we spend a lot of time on like, okay, getting the perfect picture, the perfect content written. And then the engagement isn't there because our own community isn't informed. So let's dive into that, because I think that's really important.
Yeah, and I to your point, I do want to start with just a couple quick stats. I think this is really helpful to frame up what we're talking about here. So just some things to think about when we talk about, employee advocacy. Let's focus on that first. That's getting your internal team to like, comment, engage with what you are sharing on social platforms. Looking at employee shared content. So when your internal team goes out and shares your content, you are looking at receiving an 8x engagement versus just regular branded content. That's crazy. So employee advocacy could boost brand reach up by, you're talking 500%, 5x. It could increase engagement 800%, 8x. So these are really, really, really impactful ways to make a difference. And I think the beautiful part about this is it's low hanging fruit. This isn't like I have to go out and find an influencer or cost anything. Yes, this is just about building that internal process of how do you share this with your employees? How do you keep them in the know of what's going on? What messaging and marketing are you trying to put out there so they can help reinforce that and share it to their network? And I think one of the other really telling stats here is if you look at this from a CMO perspective, there was a recent survey done from Octopost, but 47%, so almost half of CMOs say employee advocacy is their best performing social initiative.
Yep.
Kind of crazy.
And, and I do want to point out, like, why don't people do it? And I think, I did some research on this about why. And one of the things that was surprising to me is like, people just like, we assume because somebody works for us that they get our posts when they're on social media. And when you survey employees, they're like, I don't even see our posts. So having a process that puts the best top posts in front of our employees, even so that they know what's out there, so that they can share and engage, is an overlooked thing. Because there's the assumption that your busy employees, when they get on their social pages, automatically see your posts.
Yes.
And that assumption is false when surveys are done. So
Absolutely.
That's one thing. Now, we said it's inexpensive. It probably costs nothing. If you go out and you research some of the most successful employee advocacy, sometimes they do a level of like motivators for their employees to get involved. That could be like the more, you get your name in a drawing and you get $100 gift card or something like, but nominal compared when you think, okay, $100 gift card once a month compared to what it takes to pay for a very successful digital ad. So those are the two things I wanted to point out and often overlook. Like, you can educate your employees, but sometimes it might take a little extra motivation, and you can't assume that they see your posts, because like sometimes I don't even see our posts. So like I have to go search them. So, let's just be mindful of that kind of thing.
Absolutely. And I think one of the small things that you can do too is implement something as some form of process from an onboarding perspective. When you bring new employees on, make them aware of what platforms that you're using. Talk to them, and particularly when we're talking about B2B, do they have a LinkedIn profile? Now that they're an employee, are they connected and showing that they work at your company? That employment piece on LinkedIn, is that connected? Are they not just, liking the page or liking posts, but are they following it? So to Angie's point, making sure that they're getting some of the content that's released regularly. And then there's a simple process that you can put in place by doing just a weekly share at the end of each week. Here's the post that we've shared this week. Would love you to like, comment, and share to your own networks. That in itself is a very easy way to leverage building a loyal tribe around your brand. And I think what's really cool about this is we're seeing a really big shift in the marketing world that's kind of going away from transactional marketing to more of like relational marketing. Again, going back to consumer trust in people is outweighing and way greater than your polished campaign. So I really think about, the role of community in your long-term brand loyalty. How are you building that? What does it look like for you? And that's something that it's a little subjective. So each company is going to have a little bit of a different play. They might have a different, type of employees and what you're trying to get done. So I think it's about looking at your internal employees first, and then figuring out who's really active on the social. Can you lean into them as almost your internal champion to help really boost the visibility of your posts? Because again, it's all going back to trust. I mean, and we talk a lot about telling stories here. And I think this is a big piece of it. As you tell stories, the component of stories that really drives marketing is the trust component. Because when you tell a story and you can see yourself in it, and then you find that, oh my gosh, we're just like that company that's in the story. There's that pre-established trust that you're already jumping far ahead in that sort of sales process in the marketing funnel. So I love that. I think it's super impactful, and it's what we need to lean into as traditional, transactional marketing is kind of falling by the wayside. And it's also, I mean, why has there been a huge growth in influencer marketing, right? It's because people trust people. Like, that's just what it comes down to. So that's super exciting about, the opportunity is that it's right there. And to your point, again, it's not expensive. So a couple like tips, I think, for us, I want to try to keep it actionable for everybody. So start with one platform. I know, we did a recent strategy talk on like building a social strategy. And one of the things that we talked about was being spread too thin, right? Figure out one platform where most of your team is on and where most of your prospects, clients, and partners are on, and then make that your focus. So whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, is there a group that you've created? Is it something on Twitter or X? But I really, once you zero in on that platform, it's important to start driving educational content, even using like call it behind the scenes content of a day in the life at your organization, what's happening, and even networking events, things that are going on, because those are things that really play and they really land in the social space. And then it's also, that's typically what your employees will want to engage with, right? They want to share educational content. They want to share, seeing themselves in action or the team in action.
Yes. Yes.
I really
I think I do too. And there's more you can do with it. Like you can make it cultural, part of your cultural
yes.
fit, like that we're super proud of our brand, and there's internal things you can do to make it fun, and you can spotlight an employee, once a month, or depending on how big you are, once a week, once a quarter, depending on your size. So there's so many fun things you can do with it that really engage employees in a genuine, real way. That's not fake. That's not just for marketing, but that is to increase employee morale. So I love it for that reason too.
And it gives you the opportunity to not have to feel like you're selling every time you post, create engagement opportunities without feeling like, and this is one of the things we talk about oftentimes with our clients, is like, oh my gosh, if we don't have to force feed the sales process, like almost let that become more of a natural discussion and lean into other areas that are really engagement opportunities. So that's just it's a great way to also kind of get away from that selling feeling every time you do a post. We talked a little bit about the statistics, but I think, one of the things that I want to go back to is really figuring out a way to activate your team as your internal brand ambassadors. So you touched on this a little bit, Ma, about, maybe you can build in some form of I don't know what to say, call it a giveaway, but like there's some form of incentive program based around engagement. Like, do you put some metrics in place and KPIs that says, hey, if the employee that shares and then has the most, following from that, maybe they get something in return. Like, so there's ways to build this advocacy program that incentivizes your employees. And then I think the beautiful part about that is, one, obviously you're getting engagement, you're getting results, but it starts to build the culture at your business, because that's, the employees want to be a piece of that. They want to be a part of the story. And what's also the beautiful part about this is it's almost like, yes, the end result is we want to drive engagement, but you're impacting your company culture, which impacts, employee retention, which impacts service delivery, which, so there's so many underlying effects that come out of this, as well as once you engage with your employees, there's more than one positive angle to this.
Yeah. And so two things I want to share is, like, one really cool thing I saw was, like, it would be like us doing like YaZo dollars. So employees could earn that company brand YaZo dollars for doing certain things. And then those dollars, there's so many cool incentive programs, like where you can, use your dollars to buy things. Like like super cool stuff. And that was really fun. But then depending on the industry you're in, and this is super industry specific, but if it's an industry that engages with the public, like you're direct to consumer, allowing them to earn the company dollars too, is something that's really cool. Certainly doesn't fit in all industries, but like thinking retail, coffee shops, things like that, is a really fun way to build that external advocate so that they can do certain things, like, anybody doing X this week, posting a picture of themselves with our whatever earns a, 10 YaZo dollars. Yeah. And then they can apply it to the store, where you might just have like a little, could be, a coffee mug or whatever. But there's some really cool programs like that being done. And I think we just need to think outside the box about it. And it doesn't have to be just for super large companies. It can be small business doing it.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think that as you look at, the industries, the next thing I kind of want to pivot to is, you have employees, right? But we've talked about partners. Have you thought about your partners as an extension? I mean, they're an extension of what you're doing from a service delivery. So why aren't they a part or an extension of what you're doing from a marketing perspective? Going out and saying, we really appreciate the partnership that we have with you. We would love, to do a spotlight on our partnership. So doing a post where you can tag that company, or even ask them, would you guys be willing to, share some of our content, and we'll do the same thing for you. Make it a reciprocal relationship, but ask the question. I think there's, to your point, so many things aren't done because we assume that, oh, they're not going to do it because there's too much going on, or we assume that our employees see our post, so they're going to engage with it. That assumption just basically takes out that first step. And then once you don't take that first step, you don't know what's happening. So I think, what we get down to here is just take that step, reach out to your partners, see what they're doing, see what stories you can tell. Maybe you can find a case study that you can create, but use your partners as an advocate as well, just like you would use your employees. And perhaps there's an opportunity there that you can share your weekly post with your partners, just saying, hey, team, here's what we've done this week. If you can have an opportunity, we'd love for you to like and share. It can be as simple as that. It doesn't have to be rocket science.
It's funny, when I started in marketing in the early 90s, I used to actually take you on some of these meetings, but like I would go around and try to find joint marketing for the business I worked in. And so joint marketing partnerships were a huge thing back then. And you really saw them go away, but it was very like boots on the ground. You'd go around, you'd say, hey, we have similar customers. Can we support each other? And you get creative. Sometimes it would be super easy stuff like, having a giveaway box where people could drop their cards and then they win something from the other business. But we would do that and it was effective. And, obviously digital took a lot of that away, but but what was cool was like, you almost had an agreement, and some companies even formalized that agreement. Like it was a joint marketing partnership contract formalized. And I have noticed probably in the last 10 years, maybe 5, that people don't want to, like they assume, because you said like there's assumption that people are doing it, but I see the assumption that you don't think that people want to do it.
There's
and I'm like, have you ever asked?
Have you ever asked?
No, I don't. They're not going to want to do that. And I'm thinking to myself, well, you've never asked, so you're never going to know. But back in the day, using that term, we asked and we actually put them into agreements like, okay, I'll do this for you if you do this for me. Yeah. And I just think it's a missing part of a lot of strategies because they need it just as much as you do. Your partners are battling the same, digital marketing, like what is going on, what works, what doesn't, that you are today.
Absolutely. And I think that when you really take a look at the partnership opportunities, if you're willing to go into partnership with them on something, you should be willing to have a conversation with them about some of the things that you're doing from a marketing perspective, from a go-to-market perspective. And if they're not aligned with you, is it a true partnership? So I think it's, by doing some of these things, you're also weeding out who is a good partner and who's not. So to your point, we've had an explosion of tools, an explosion of opportunity to connect and work with people, yet we aren't really leveraging the true relationship. And that's what moves the needle in marketing, is relationships. It's funny how many times I go out and I look at tools in the space that we're playing in, the introduction of AI, every day there's something new. So it could literally be your only job just to review new tools. That's all you do. But what you have to do is go to people that I trust. Who are people that I follow? What are they using? So you got to think about that. How do you look for tools? If you're looking for it like that, I'm sure other people are doing that. So it's just, this process can apply to so many things from a marketing perspective. And I love it because it's not very expensive. Time is really what it takes. You're already paying your employees. So you already have a relationship with your partners. It's just about taking the initiative, investing a little bit of time, and doing an internal reflection on what do we want this to look like. Then build the process around that, find the platform that you want to spend time on, and go forth with it. So this is something that's, I think, is really, really easily actionable. And I just want to leave you guys with a couple quick questions, and then we'll wrap this baby up because I know we're trying to keep them short and sweet and digestible. But think about this. How are you currently using your internal team in your marketing efforts? That's an easy one, right? Just how are you using them? What does it look like today? Right. What could it look like going forward? What social platforms do you see most community engagement on right now? Where are most of your partners, your clients, your employees? What is that platform? And then how are you currently working with your partners? Like, how are you equipping them to speak about your brand? Do you do an onboarding with the partners? Do you tell them, this is our mission, this is our vision, this is how we speak about it, so they can echo that in their messaging and their communication? So those are just 3 things I think that you could easily do. Quickly to recap, what platforms are you currently on, or your clients, your partners, where are they at, right? So figure out that platform. How are you currently using your internal team, and how are you equipping your partners to talk about your brand?
And 2 things that I want to point out. One is like, what do you do that betters the world and community? Because people love to share about that. So doing your like community advocacy, things you're doing in the region or in the world at large, and getting it out there. People love to share about that. And then the one thing that we didn't talk on, which I'm passionate about, is you don't know what your employees want to do. So when's the last time you did a general survey? Because like, I'm
Feedback.
always surprised when you find employees that like love to write or love to do video, and they might say like, I'd love to do a monthly blog. Like, let's sit down and talk about it. Let me do a podcast. And I'm not saying you can do all of those things, but do you even know who you have in your organization that in their free time, they're a semi-professional photographer? Like, it's just crazy the stuff you find out when you actually choose to really know your employees. And that is super important, and put it to work for yourself.
Absolutely.
That's
the
how
feedback
I feel.
is massive. And I love the touch on the community element. How are you making an impact? Because yes, that's really what is, it's impactful in marketing, is sharing your community mission, sharing how you're working in the space. So really, really love that. Those are great add-ons, Ma, but appreciate you all joining us for Strategy Talk. If there's one thing I want you to walk away with, it's this: your community is your competitive edge. Remember, people trust people. So start with your team, empower them, engage your partners, and focus on platforms that build connection, not just your attention. So looking to help activate that, give us a shout. If you want to, have a discussion on how do you refine your advocacy strategy, drop us a message here on LinkedIn. We'd love to connect, and we'd love to keep the conversation rolling. If you have a topic you want to explore going forward, drop that in the comments as well. But we appreciate you giving us a couple minutes of your Friday. Have a blessed rest of your week and an awesome weekend, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks all. Have a good one.
Yeah.
Take care.